2 years in. Oh,
There we
there
go.
we go.
I got it.
Got it.
They all
Thank you.
seem to happen at one day, right? It's like,
Yes, indeed.
if you're going to have a technical difficulty meeting, it always happens at once. Okay. All right. So I mentioned welcome. I'm so excited for this conversation. I was reflecting on, as we were having our little chats with the speakers, getting ready for you all, that I started SVCE about 4 years ago. And one of the programs that I was gifted to create was an award program for innovative charging installations at multifamily. And then out of all the programs that I've had the pleasure of working on, SVCE is the only one that we had to cancel, because at that time, 4 years ago, we couldn't find enough examples. We did everything that we could to give out awards, and we did 1 year of awards, but we just didn't have enough examples. And so it was just really exciting to get to look at this list of speakers and have a sense of the slides and all of the work that's happened since then, that when we go into, we're going to talk about this charging infrastructure services for multifamily housing program, a statewide program they call, or a PG&E wide, sorry, a program that's being offered through Ecology Action. They're going to talk about just some really exciting things that they've learned doing multifamily charging across the Bay Area. And then we have this second area of topic where we have not one, but 3 different business models where we'll get to hear about on how we can install charging at multifamily and kind of what makes the most sense. So we'll get to hear from GoPowerEV, EVmatch, and Heritage Realty Group as an example of a property owner that's actually installed charging. And then we'll get to hear around some technical assistance from ClearResult, working with a variety of properties in SVCE service territory, like real ground up lessons learned. And so put another way, after 4 years, we've gone to thinking about what could charging look like, what could solutions look like, to now having some real on the ground solutions, with our hands dirty. And I'm really excited to learn from you all. We still have a long way to go. This is such an important topic because over 50% of residents in California, if I have my numbers correct, are renters. And a lot of those renters live in multifamily. We're seeing big increases in EV adoption. I think probably folks know this, but if I'm having my numbers correct, it was like over 20% of new EV sales or new auto sales in the last quarter were EVs. Yet these are still disproportionately owned by single family homes occupants, right? And really because of charging access. So in order to ensure, one, that we're able to fully scale EV, the benefits of EV to all folks and meet climate targets, and that it's done equitably in a way that just, benefits everyone, we've got to crack this nut of how we can get charging better to tenants. And so we've got really the experts on this call today to go through this. We also know that many of you that are here in the audience have your own experiences. So we really invite this to be a discussion. We've got this time at the end, about 30 minutes, set aside just for questions and answers. But as folks are going through their presentations, please feel free to put questions in the chat to make this really a discussion. As we all know too, sometimes with so much information, we can forget what our question was. So please feel free to use that chat function. And I'm not going to go any deeper into introductions because I really want to get right into the meat of why you all are here today. But I'm just going to invite each of our speakers right before your presentation. Please feel free to introduce yourself briefly and kind of what your work is around multifamily EV charging.
And we do have one little note in terms of, yes, during the around the time of the technical assistance for multifamilies presentation, you'll all be getting an emergency alert on your phones. I think most of you have seen the media about it in the last couple of days, but that will be, it could be anytime from 11:20 to 11:50, but don't be alarmed. And did just remind everybody that that will be happening during our meeting this morning. Thank you.
Great example of how Kara so subtly tries to remind me to say things multiple times and I still forget. And thank you, Kara, for doing that. Okay, fantastic. Then I'm delighted to hand it over to Devin to talk about EV charging infrastructure and services available right now for multifamily properties.
Hi, good morning. So we're really excited to share with you our new multifamily and small business electric vehicle charging program. It's a new program that just launched in June, and kind of the gist of the program is that we're really trying to increase reliable access to electric vehicle charging in underserved communities, and really future-proof both multifamily housing and small businesses where people live and work. So I think we have our deck ready. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Yep. Oh. There we go.
Are we sure there aren't any animations in this? We'll try one more time. Oh, Devin, it won't go back.
It's okay. It's okay. We can just keep rolling. So, the program benefits, we are working with existing PG&E customers with eligible properties in these priority communities, and they receive no cost EV charging installation, 2 years of prepaid networking fees, on-site support as well as training for the managers, operations and a maintenance plan, and resident and employee education and outreach around EV incentives and how to use EV chargers, both during construction as well as post-construction. We really want to educate these communities who may not know how to qualify for these incentives. Eligible PG&E customers that are not in priority zones will pay a cost share, and I'll go into that in further detail a little later in the presentation. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So we're going to have resident and employee outreach in English and Spanish with door-to-door canvassing for multifamily housing. We're also going to host affordable housing EV workshops and access Clean California Benefits Finder to learn how to stack incentives and really provide that education and outreach. We will also be developing information and presentations in other languages on a needs-based basis based on the community area that we're in. Go ahead, next slide, please. And these are a few examples of our EV charging installation. And so we're really flexible based on the available parking, both for multifamily and small business. We'll be working with existing power, but we're really wanting to be flexible and overcome some of the traditional barriers that would prevent this from being installed in these communities. Next slide, please. So around eligibility, they must be an existing PG&E customer. We're going to work with existing power, so the common area panel has to have capacity for the chargers. For affordable housing, there's no size limitation, and that's really critical because now we're really able to help some people that were really traditionally missed. For the non-affordable housing that are in priority communities, between 5 and 49 units is going to be what we're looking for. Small businesses and nonprofits, we're really wanting to target less than 100 employees, less than 16 million in annual gross receipts, and there'll be some electrical annual usage that we'll keep an eye on.
Sorry, that is an animation apparently, so we're going to take our time to give you that screen.
Yeah, so just around the annual electric use, we want to keep it under 500,000 kilowatt hours, and that'll be verified using their bill. The other two qualifications will be based on the honor system. Go ahead and next slide, please. So the priority eligibility zones have been kind of determined based on a few criteria. And what we're really sticking towards are income, looking for tribal communities, rural areas, and socioeconomically disadvantaged communities. So these are the criteria that we're using. We have a mapping tool for it that really helps us identify these target communities, move swiftly and quickly, and get to the site and qualify them right away. Next slide, please. So here's the program application and timeline expectation. So we're currently in phase 1 of the program. We just started in June. We're going through the end of this year. So we're really going to be targeting these eligible sites in these communities. Sites outside of the priority community zone can still apply, but they'll be waitlisted until the beginning of next year, where we'll kind of open it up, and these will have a cost share that we can go in once we have a site assessment done. Next slide, please. So to prepare for an application, it's really, really simple. You just need your PG&E bill. And on that bill, you'll find your account number and your SID number, which is your service agreement number. So those two pieces of information are really what you need to get started, as well as just kind of a picture of the parking structure. Go ahead and go to next slide, please. So here's an example of a bill. No worries, go ahead. No, we're good. Yep. And after you enter your account number and your SID number, then you would upload a picture of the proposed parking lot. And that you can use a Google Earth image or a picture from your cell phone. We really want to make it simple and easy and convenient for people to upload and submit the application without being an expert in EV charging or infrastructure. Go ahead, next slide, please. So here's a couple examples of pictures that we can accept. Something from your cell phone is fine, Google map image, or even just the site map from what's on the property. All of those are acceptable for a successful application. Next slide, please. And so here is our Candyland map of a successful customer journey. So we're on the front two steps, which is the customer application and eligibility check. Simple and convenient. We schedule a local regional advisor to contact the interested applicant and schedule an on-site survey where they go out and look at the property, discuss what they're thinking, and go through a preliminary qualification. And we do that really quickly. We want to educate the community, but also give them a quick answer. And at that point, we move forward through contractor development, approval of the project, and go through the resident education and outreach during construction, as well as on the back end, making sure the community is aware, and there's a lot of education both for the site managers as well as the community as a whole. Next slide, please. So we have a few site survey screening questions, and this really helps us understand if the site would be disqualified immediately. So if they have an existing outlet at their assigned parking space or garage, they already have a solution. We really want to help people that don't have an option. So if they don't have that, they're immediately qualified. If the property was constructed after 1985, we know that it'll be up to code. If it was constructed before 1985, it's still worth having a conversation because many properties have had solar or other electrical upgrading systems, but these will be some of the site survey screening questions that the advisors discuss with the property owner or decision maker. We also ideally want the parking spaces to be within 100 feet of the electrical panels, and this was really just around keeping costs under control. We do have some flexibility here, but we want to make sure we have this conversation up front. And that's the end of our presentation. Thank you so very much for your time. I look forward to questions at the end or in the chat. Thank you.
Fantastic. Devin, I'm putting a question in the chat you can answer there or at the end. That was super interesting. Actually, can I ask you one clarifying question folks might be interested in? And sorry if I missed this, but you know about how many properties you'll be able to serve with this program?
Well, what we're really looking is to serve 450 project sites within the PG&E electric footprint. So all PG&E electric clients will be, we can explore their property. We want to install 2,000 electric charging ports. So 450 project sites with around 2,000 EV charging ports in a 2-year period. So pretty aggressive.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. So again, if folks have other questions for Devin, please feel free to put them in the chat and then we'll have a bigger discussion at the end. And now I am delighted to hand the mic to Miguel Martinez and Mike Westlow. Hopefully I'm getting your name right, Mike. Otherwise, I'll trust you'll correct me to talk about GoPowerEV.
Yeah, I just need you to stop sharing. There we go. Ready, Miguel?
Yes.
Good to go.
So budgeting is stressful enough without needing a crystal ball to select the next critical amenities. My job is to make your life easier. I find the money to help pay for an amenity you know your tenants want and need. I'm Miguel Martinez, the Subsidies, Incentives, and Grants Manager for GoPowerEV. Silicon Valley Energy is one of the great agencies to offer outstanding incentives for you to convert your existing parking spaces to EV charging spaces. Your multifamily housing residents want what single-family residents get to do: come home, plug in, and keep the EV charging until needed. Simple way to make your life easier. GoPowerEV was designed for EV owners residing in multifamily housing to have the same experience as single-family residents. Come home, plug in, and smart charge their EV until they need it. So I find the money to pay for an amenity you know your tenants want and need. This money comes from agencies like Silicon Valley Clean Energy, Bay Area Air Quality Management District, the California Energy Commission, and the Air Resources Board, the U.S. Department of Energy, and the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation. So email me at miguel.martinez@GoPowerEV so I can help make your life easier by getting the funds to pay for an amenity you know your tenants want and need, converting parking spaces to EV charging spaces. And Mike Westlow, the GoPower Director of Electrical Contracting Partnerships, will tell you about installation options, maintenance benefits, and options for ROI of our EV charging systems. Mike?
Thanks, Miguel. So as Miguel said, my name is Mike Westlow. Today I was going to talk quickly, this is a short little piece of time we have here, about kind of where and how many EV parking spots do you need when you're looking at this from the perspective of an ownership. So first thing we talk about is if you look at the ramp up of EV purchasing today, you know, the state of California as a whole, I heard yesterday on the Epic call that we were on, is at about a 25% of new cars registered in the state are EVs. You go to a county like San Mateo, it's at 40%. You go to a city at Palo Alto, you're at 50%. So when you're thinking about where you need to put EV charging spots or how many you need to put in, first question is always look at the code, see what you're required to do. And the second thing is, where's your building at? You know, what kind of uptake are you having in your area? And then what's kind of the tenant mix in your building? And with this uptake of EVs, what we're really seeing is the older model of having a couple of chargers out in the back of the building, which worked great for the last 5 or 10 years when there was a much lower level of adoption, was fine. But as we move forward, you know, we're looking at how do we get rid of that charger availability anxiety, you know, if there's any tension between between users on a shared resource. A lot of people put in idle fees to encourage people to move. And then, you know, if we have a higher end, more amperage charging system, that's a little more expensive to expand. Conversely, if we shift that and we move into a model where we're doing assigned or dedicated charging, that means every time your resident comes in, they have a dedicated port to plug into, relieves that anxiety of, am I going to have a place to charge my car? The system that we build at GoPowerEV prioritizes the use of the lowest rates. So if in your territory you have time of use rates, which by definition in PG&E we all do, we have access to those. Our system takes advantage of those rates to deliver the lowest possible cost charge. In our system, you request a charge, you plug it in, you walk away, just like Miguel was saying, plug it in, walk away, your car charges, and our system manages the entire charging session and gives you the energy that you've requested by the time you want to leave. We also enable more parking spots because we kind of lower the power per vehicle going out so that we can do more spots. And then the numbers on that look like the average miles driven in the US are 38 miles in a day. On the outer ports on our product, someone can pick up 50 to 60 miles overnight. And on our product, 2 cars can charge simultaneously off one of those units. Or if they need more than that, they can plug into the center receptacle, which gives them up to about 150 or 160 miles overnight. And then we also monitor all the energy usage, so any of the end users get to pay for exactly the energy that they're taking up. So how do we manage all this? It's a simple interface. Our application has either an economy charge mode, or we manage the charge for them, or we can press a button where they say, you know, I need as much energy as I can get as fast as I can get it. So in the economy mode, that's taking advantage of only the lowest cost rates. And basically you're telling our system, hey, I have enough charge in my battery, but, you know, top me off with the lowest cost electricity out there, because, you know, my car's parked here anyway, I might as well get used to doing that. Then the next mode up says, hey, I want to add 78 miles of range before I leave tonight at 9:41 p.m. Click it into auto mode. The system will do its best to get you that charge in that time frame and do it at the lowest cost it has available to it. And you can estimate down here of how long that will take. The other thing is, you know, as you're looking at putting these systems in and you're looking at doing an ROI analysis, you know, talking to my building owners online here, you can really look at what is your residents, what are they putting back in their pocket by having an EV? You know, there's a reduction in maintenance costs, but there's also a huge reduction in, quote, fueling costs, right? So EV charging at home, you know, this is not my numbers, this comes out of NerdWallet. So EV charging at home, you know, you're going to run about $87 a month in charges for an average person with an average car. Take that same vehicle and drive away from home in public and charge it at a public charger, and you almost double that number. And then if you went back to an ICE car with today's gas prices hitting like $7, it's probably even a lot more than $233. But you get the idea. And the reason I bring this up is when you are looking at your ROI, and if you are thinking about, which I'll get to in a minute, if you're thinking about maybe charging for an EV enabled stall, there is money in your residents' budgets to do that now. You know, they should keep some of that money, but there is money for them to spread around and use it that way. So at this point in the presentation, you're probably wondering, what does an EV charger look like in multifamily today? They've shrank quite a bit. We've left the model of, you know, a big tall stand with the cables coming off the sides. And the reason we've done that is, and those have screens and credit card readers and all kinds of stuff. And the reason we've done that is those were really developed for use out in the public, you know, where you're doing public charging and you got to get a lot of electrons into the vehicle quickly. So when you switch to a model of saying, hey, this is my home, this is where I live, this is where my car sits for, you know, 12, 14 hours a night, you can charge it slower, get the same amount of miles added, and you can have a much more sleek and unique design that sits into the garage. It doesn't take up very much space. It's like 8 inches by 8 inches. And that's a lot nicer look and feel for your garage. And when you're trying to make this ubiquitous and put lots of these in, that actually makes a big difference in the look and feel of the garage, and also the tidiness of the cables. Because let's be honest, we've all driven past EV chargers. How frequently are those cables actually wound up? Not very often. So, and the reason for that is it's not the person who's getting the electrons cable. So they just don't have that level of care that they're going to take the time to wind it up. In our ideology, the cable is theirs. They take the cable with them, and therefore they take better care of it. And they're not laying around when they're not in use. By the way, this particular driver actually drives home the point really well that charging at home is important, and especially in multifamily. So this Tesla here is an older Tesla with grandfathered free supercharging. So, and they live in Mountain View, California. Plenty of superchargers all over the place within 5 minutes of their building. They actually pay us for their electricity instead because of the convenience factor. All right, things you want to think about really quick. So charging as a service and cost recovery. So there's a model out there that's charging as a service, which is what GoPowerEV does, and some of my other partners in this space that also provide EV charging in multifamily. So what that means is, are you going to go back to the model where you have to fix things yourself on your property? Or are you going to go with the current trend where you have a landscape person that takes care of the grass, you have a laundry company that takes care of the washing machines, you have a pool company that takes care of the pool? So we conjecture you also want an EV company that's going to take care of the EV chargers, and there's a service fee for that on a monthly basis. It becomes a fixed monthly fee instead of a variable cost if there's something that goes wrong. And then also because of this, we stay involved with the property. If something does go wrong, residents call us first, not your property manager. So when you look at cost recovery, you can say, hey, it's amenity. We're just going to take it out of our marketing budget. It's just like having a pool. Maybe it increases the value of the property and we up the rents a tiny bit. Or maybe you want it to be a premium amenity and you want to charge for it. You want to enact a parking fee or an additional fee if you already have those for parking spots that have access to EV charging. And then another option is revenue share. We can increase the price of the kilowatt hours, and there's a possibility for revenue share in there. Personally, I think people charging at home should benefit from the lowest possible cost power, and so that's my least favorite option, hence I put it last. What else do we have in here? Items for you to consider when you are looking at putting in an EV charging system. Do you want residents to be able to charge in their own dedicated and assigned spot where there's no sharing and there's no conflicts? Do you want a partner that's doing a complete installation and they do ongoing management? Are you looking for something that's priced where you can do kind of a whole garage or a good percentage of it? Or you just want to do a couple of spaces where people have to swap cars a lot? If you're looking at systems out there, highly recommend you get one that does load management and load balancing. There's lots of them available. We're one of them. And not enough time in today's call to explain what that is. And then optimized charging rates. You really should be looking for something that does have the built-in optimized charging rates. So quick recap, assigned and dedicated EV parking spots are the most viable path forward for charging at scale at multifamily properties. Slow charging is the best charging, especially for existing properties that are doing retrofits. You want to lower those peak power usage and have it more spread out. And then looking for an all-inclusive charging as a service, which matches the current trends for outsourcing, operation and maintenance of specific facility functions. And then items to consider when adding charging, who's going to manage the project, who's going to manage your subsidies, incentives, and grants, your engineering, your permits, etc. And then will you have to true up your electric bill? There are companies out there like ours that will take control of an entire meter just for EV charging, and we'll accept the bill for that, and then we'll parse out the electrical usage to the people using it, and then who's going to maintain and fix it. And that's us in the 10 minutes that we had. So back to you, Zoe. And if anybody wants to get a hold of Miguel or I, contact us. Our contact information's out there. Obviously, this is just kind of a taste of what we do. Happy to chat with anybody longer and put your questions in the Q&A.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mike. So
You're very welcome.
Please put questions in the Q&A. I already have a list that's generated in my mind. Really super interesting. I love that animation showing how we used to do it and how we're moving towards doing it now. What shocking figures of the amount of uptake. Definitely need to get ready. All right, so please put your questions in the chat and then we'll come back as a group in a little bit. But now I'm excited to hand it over to Heather from EVmatch to talk about their solution.
All right, thank you, Zoe. Excited to be here. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
All righty. Well, thanks everyone. Again, my name is Heather Hochrein. I'm the founder and CEO at EVmatch, and it's exciting to be back here. As Zoe mentioned, they've been supportive of multifamily EV charging solutions for many years, and EVmatch has had the pleasure of working with SVTEC on several different projects now, and really appreciate the support and kind of focus on this issue over the past few years. So EVmatch is very focused on increasing access to EV charging for renters and apartment dwellers, as many of the folks on this call are. And we have a unique solution really around our vision of accelerating EV adoption to make charging easy, reliable, and accessible to everyone. So we are on a mission to help real estate developers, property owners, and managers future-proof their properties with affordable, easy-to-use EV charging solutions. So Just to level set a little bit, we are focused on a level 2 solution, which is different from GoPowerEV. And so we are focused on a reservable shared level 2 solution, which we find helps to alleviate a lot of the barriers that we all know exist in multifamily. So just to highlight, level 1 is estimated range per hour of about 2 to 5 miles. So a slower charge. Level 2 is faster, about 10 to 20 miles added to the vehicle per hour. And then level 3, of course, is the DC fast charging, which is really ideal for long distance travel and corridors. So in our vision, we do see level 2 and 1 working together really well in multifamily. And we have focused particularly on the level 2 piece. So in terms of broader industry pain points, we have observed over the many years of EV adoption that multifamily charging has largely been left out, and there have been a lack of adequate solutions for this sector. We've seen that a lot of solutions have been overpriced, overfeatured, and frankly, not well designed for optimal sharing among renters and tenants. We also found a lot of solutions in the past were non-networked, which really reduced the opportunity for properties to have cost recovery and smart power management systems. And we also found that a lot of solutions in the past didn't have capability for reservations and an equitable and reasonable sharing system in buildings. So we have come up with solutions for all of those issues. So for the property owners on the call, I think it's really important to highlight why would you put in EV charging? And what we've learned over the years is really there's many reasons. Some folks are doing it to comply with code, but we also see that we have a lot of our customers wanting to attract and retain high value tenants. They want to stay ahead of the competition, the opportunity to earn revenue from a low cost amenity. And then of course, the opportunity to improve their overall ESG and sustainability ratings at their buildings and keep their investors happy, as this is increasingly important. We're very proud to have a variety of partnerships with government agencies, hardware manufacturers, and a variety of multifamily properties, management companies, and developers. And as I mentioned, we have worked similar with a lot of government agencies as my previous speakers. So California Energy Commission, SVTEC, and the US Department of Energy. So we are also experts at helping our clients get access to incentives and rebate funds. So I'm going to spend just a couple minutes here diving into the product to show you what it looks like. And I have actually several of my team members on the call, Amber Cutchy and Jeff Chenoweth. So feel free to ask questions in the chat, and we would be happy to schedule a meeting afterwards if anyone would like a full product demo. So I won't go too deep, but I think most folks on the call know the kind of elements of an EV charging project, where you have the equipment, the installation, and then of course the networking service. So some sort of software to have access controls, pricing, and power management. So with our platform, we provide a variety of hardware manufacturers integrated with our platform, and we resell those aspects, those charging stations. And then we also refer folks to pre-qualified installation contractors. So we do truly have an end-to-end solution where we can provide the hardware, the referral for the contractor, and the day-to-day management of the charging system. We currently offer 2 different manufacturers, so the NLX JuiceBox, as well as the Wallbox Pulsar Plus. Both of these products are very affordable. And similar to what Mike said, really, these are designed for multifamily. So we are focused on a smaller footprint, a lower cost charging station, and one that still can enable payment processing, power sharing, and of course, cost recovery for the property owner. We really take into account the unique considerations of the property. So for example, we are looking for any requirements from a hardware perspective for a rebate program, and we will make recommendations accordingly. We have a variety of partners we work with on the installation, and we also work with ClearResult, who can help us to do some of the technical assistance. So we are helping our clients to get a site visit completed, review bids, and then we actually provide a bundled quote so they can evaluate the full project cost. I want to highlight that we have a couple exciting opportunities that folks on the phone might want to think about. In addition to the incentives and rebates available with Silicon Valley Clean Energy today, we are also actively deploying a grant from the California Energy Commission that we were awarded about a year and a half ago. So we are still deploying funds for this program, and this is a program that funds $5,000 for the installation of a level 2 charger, a free charging station, and up to 5 years or 5 years of free management software. So what this is qualified for is multifamily in Silicon Valley or Santa Clara County, and multifamily that is willing to provide a bit of public access. So that is a criteria for this grant. We do need to have some public access, which our software solution is very well designed for. So a sneak peek at the product. I'm going to show you kind of the driver view as well as what it looks like to be a site host. So for our drivers, they download the EVmatch mobile app. And what's really unique about our system is that we have a reservation system built into the software. So, historically, the system has been kind of first come, first serve, hope the charger might be available, which has created a lot of problems for tenants and community managers in multifamily settings. There's often been a lot of fighting about who gets to use the charger. So at EVmatch, we take on that responsibility. We provide a reservation system so that drivers can easily identify which chargers are available at a specific time, book a time, and then that charger is reserved for them and only them. They can then extend reservations as needed, and they are notified when it's time to move their vehicle. We also understand that some folks won't make a reservation. So we have a very easy to use interface where the driver can actually key in the charger ID if needed and if it's available. So in terms of the property owner, we've created a very easy to use system where they onboard the chargers. They can create a variety of groups. So one thing that is unique about our software is the ability to have public and private groups with different prices and different schedules. So this is where we find a lot of opportunity to combine resident use as well as the public. And this is helpful for building owners that may not have any EV drivers on day one. They can still earn revenue. And then over time, they can change that schedule and phase out public access if they choose to. So you can see here, property owners can create different groups. They enable access codes as a way to provide that access to the drivers. And then the drivers can unlock lower cost charging if they live in the building. In terms of ROI, we know this is super important to drivers, so we want to highlight this. EVmatch is about 40 to 60% more affordable than many of our level 2 competitors. And that's historically been a barrier for level 2 charging at multifamily housing. So we have partnered with some of the lowest cost charging manufacturers on the market. We work very hard to help reduce the make-ready costs by partnering with agencies like SVTEC. And so what we found is typically a property owner will see about a 3.8 year simple payback period. And this is assuming that we have about 20% growth in charging sessions. This is also assuming that there is some make-ready incentive, in this case, about a $4,000 incentive for the level 2 charger. But what's helpful here is that we have a lower cost piece of hardware, very affordably priced software. And with our public access component, we increase utilization of these assets even on day one. So I want to give a quick overview of some of our examples, properties that we've worked on over the last few years, and we're proud to have one of our clients on the phone today. So we have Park Plaza Apartments in Mountain View that we'll be talking about, Revere in Campbell, and Park at Pruneyard in Campbell. And I want to highlight that we've helped our clients secure about $175,000 in incentives at just these 3 properties. And those have really helped to increase the speed at which these projects are deployed and really have made some projects possible that otherwise wouldn't have proceeded. We are seeing about a 33% growth of utilization on our chargers at these 3 sites. And these 3 properties have 32 ports, about 307 unique drivers, and we've seen about 3,400 charging sessions thus far. I will wrap up quickly. Sorry. But Park Plaza, we have 22 chargers installed, and we just recently added 20. We helped this client get incentives from 3 different agencies, SVCE, Cali VIP, and CEC. And this is a property in Mountain View where we anticipate significant EV growth. Revere Campbell is in Campbell. We have 6 chargers there. It's a 168 unit building, and we had 2 different incentive programs involved in that project. And Park at Pruneyard, we have 4 chargers there, again in Campbell, and these chargers were in partnership with the Cali VIP program. So I believe that my time is up. Really appreciate the opportunity to share more about what we do. As I mentioned, we have some unique funding opportunities in the near term, and we would love to get in touch if you have any questions or would like to learn more. Thank you.
Great. Hannah, would you like to introduce Jeff?
Sure, absolutely. Well, as Heather alluded to, Jeff is a client at Park Plaza in Mountain View, and he recently has completed a couple of EV charging projects. And so we invited Jeff to share a bit more about his experience with his EV charger projects, what led him to do these projects, and how the reception has been amongst the tenants. We'd love to hear your perspective. So Jeff, I'll let you introduce yourself a bit more, but thank you for being here. I'll turn it to you.
Great, thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Heritage Realty Group is a property management company, owner and manager. We manage primarily in the Bay Area. We've had the honor of working with both GoPowerEV and EVmatch on a number of different projects. Both have unique solutions, are great companies to work with, and really it comes down to when you pick a provider on what your goals and options are for your properties, and those goals and options are really going to be, having been through this process, we initially had an EV charger installed in 2013, 10 years ago. So we were kind of a first mover in the space. And in the past decade, everything has come down to the limitations of your infrastructure. So if you're a property owner or a manager, all of these solutions will work, but the primary focus is what type of infrastructure do you have? And I think probably the first step is to check out the program that Ecology Action has, because they're really trying to push the adoption into the smaller buildings and the older buildings, which is where most people live. If we just look at the pure demographics of the apartment market, the multifamily market, only 10% of the buildings, apartment buildings, are over 100 units. Obviously, with bigger buildings, you have more efficiency, you have more power, you have more sharing, which makes bringing EV charging a little bit easier. So primarily in the marketplace, 90% of the buildings out there are smaller buildings, less than 100 units. Only 30% of the buildings, apartment buildings, have been built after 2000. So what this means is most 70% of the buildings are old. And as a property manager, we manage properties that are 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and our newest property was built 3 years ago. And the infrastructure available in all of those properties is vastly different. And so having been through the whole process, the number one thing to evaluate is what type of infrastructure do you have on your property? How much power do you have coming in? And this is just more of and once you evaluate that, you can figure out what solution works the best for you. And really, ultimately, the number of chargers that your property will support without having to invest a tremendous amount of money in upsizing your panels, going to PG&E and upsizing their transformers. Ultimately, what's going to happen in the state, and all of these companies that are out there doing EV charging and offering these different solutions, are really limited by what PG&E is able to deliver. If PG&E was able to deliver unlimited power to every property, all of these solutions would be perfect, and you could electrify every space out there, and there would be no problem with charging. EV adoption would be off the scales. The problem is most properties are limited by PG&E and their ability to deliver that power. So really, ultimately, what has to happen in the industry is there needs to be a push by the government, by the state of California, to push PG&E to be more receptive to electrification. And PG&E puts a lot of hurdles in front of everyone, including these companies that are trying to electrify multifamily housing, which is where a lot of people live. And what PG&E needs to do is they need to upsize their transformers. They need to have a multi-year plan to upsize, spend billions of dollars to bring more electricity to each building. Ultimately, I think the best situation is for PG&E to drop a new meter at each property, and that new meter would exclusively serve EV charging. That way, you could electrify the most spaces. Right now, what happens is if your house panel only will support X number of spots, well, that's all you're going to get. And then you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to share those spots, and work on all these games of reservations and sharing power, going to level 1, which is a slower way to charge, but still very good. And so ultimately, I think it comes down to PG&E. And so the one thing I'll just leave everyone with is to really push our governmental agencies to push PG&E to move more aggressively to find new energy resources and to upsize their transformers and to take more seriously electrifying the grid and bringing more power into the grid.
Heather, you want the final word now that one of your clients has spoken?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more that this is a serious barrier for the industry. The electrification of multifamily, older housing, smaller buildings, and the reality of transformer upgrades, service panel upgrades, and permitting. And I think this is something that SVTEC has spoken about extensively, is how can we expedite the permitting process and make it more transparent and consistent. And I know that's something the state of California is working on, but I would say we face that as a barrier as a company. And, I think it's also important to be, to the extent we can, really clear with our clients of how long these projects are going to take. So I think collectively as a group here, to the extent that we can continue to work on those public policy issues, that's going to be beneficial for property owners and private companies as well as the public sector.
Great. And anything else for this segment? GoPowerEV, do you want to weigh in with any last comments before we move on to our next segment?
Can I take Jeff to the CPUC?
Yeah. And I would say that it's not just permitting that holds us up, it's also the utilities, right? I mean, it's just a reality. There's as Jeff mentioned, you want to do transformer upgrades, depending which line you get in, fastest one you're going to get is going to be 6 months if you get in the commercial line, and if you get into the residential line, it's probably more like 12, and on the upside those are going to up to 24 months. That's affected how we go to market and how we work with our customers, in the sense that we might take steps that we wouldn't have to otherwise to make sure that they can start doing some EV charging. And then, as Heather said, it really extends the life of the project, months, if not potentially up to over a year, from beginning to final finish when we really want to walk away from it. You know, that's one of the reasons our product bifurcates, which I didn't really get into, but it allows us to, you know, have the electrician be done and the permit to be signed off, and we can keep adding more product later. But yeah, it's in today's world, it's a little bit of a challenge to go from start to all the way to finish when adding a significantly, you know, large amount of EV charging to any property. Just a lot of pieces to manage. That's why I was recommending, you know, it sounds like Heather's kind of oversees all of it, or will oversee all of it, but you need a partner.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you all so much. 3 really great solutions, and also really teed it up, I think, well for our technical assistance overview from Clear Result. I'm gonna want to just kind of mention 2 quick themes that I heard come up in everybody's presentations. I think this also feeds into Clear Result. Like, one, Mike, I really appreciated that you said that your favorite goal is to try to get tenants at multifamily to get to benefit from the low costs of EV charging. And I think that's a super important, particularly right now. It's a similar goal for SVCE, particularly since a lot of, as everybody mentioned, there's a lot of public funding right now going into this, right? At the same time, and I think, Heather, you really did a nice job speaking to this, we need to kind of make sure that there's benefits for all of the different parties at play. All 3 of the services here, I think, talked about like how you can really bring benefits to tenants, benefits to property owners, benefits to the public at large. So I just really appreciated that. And then also, it's like more and more clear through this conversation that there is no one size fits all. Jeff, thank you so much for being really clear. You know, no buildings are exactly the same. The people who live in the buildings are all different. And so really appreciate this. Like, we're going to need solutions that we're going to need level 1 solutions in some places. We're going to need level 2 solutions in some places. And then there's also probably going to be this there will be a continued role for level 3 in a way that can kind of serve multifamily. So I just really appreciated that framing. You each said it in your own way of how these different ideas are complementary to each other. And then we all talked about the need for information and good planning ahead of time, and really understanding the layout. And so that's where Clear Result comes in as a technical assistance provider within SVCE. So I'm delighted to hand it over to Claudia to talk about your work and what you've learned.
Thank you. Let me just pull up my slides. Is this the right one? Yes. All right. Can you see my slides?
We can.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, thank you for the introduction, Zoe. As she mentioned, Clear Result administers the technical assistance program on their behalf. So I'm going to just go over some of our offerings and services and the typical processes that are involved with that. And also just a thank you to the previous speakers for, providing some really great information, really helpful. And I consider the technical assistance to be yet another tool in the toolbox for multifamily property owners and EV operators. So this just quickly an agenda of the slide deck is introductions to the program staff, and then going into the program overview, we'll touch on the rebates that are available through Silicon Valley Clean Energy, and then property benefits, which have kind of already been spoken on a couple times now and may be apparent, but we'll finish this out with just next steps and what that looks like if anyone is interested in enrolling. So as I mentioned, my name is Claudia Peck and I am the account manager. And so I've been with Clear Result, which is a energy efficiency consulting and decarbonization consulting company in the United States. And we've been working with Silicon Valley Clean Energy for a few years now on this program. And alongside, he's actually on paternity leave, but Kai Grunfeld-Roy is our program manager on the Clear Result side. So we are here to support our, the SVC customers, as well as maintaining really good relationships with contractors and installers in the area. And not listed here is our list of extensive list of engineers who help us to evaluate your sites. So diving into the program, it's the FutureFit Assist program is really designed to help you help demystify the entire EV charging project lifecycle and make sure that you're going into this knowing exactly what you want, what you need, and lay that process out for you. So, ultimately, we want to make sure that you accomplish a successful EV charging project, and that includes us showing you addressing what your specific charging needs may be for today, but also illustrating what that might look like in a couple years from now, 10 years from now, so that you are making the most educated decisions when it comes to these projects. And I want to highlight that this is a complimentary service, so there's no hidden costs or obligations to even move forward with a project. Really, we want to make sure that if you are interested in exploring EV chargers for your property, that you have access to the expertise in how to do that. And with that comes streamlined design, planning, and construction. So what that looks like, and I'll touch on the details of that on the next slide, but what our offerings are designed to help make the process move as smoothly as possible, from you exploring your options to going, sending bids out to contractors, to selecting hardware and permitting and construction. And then, just in general, how I've approached this program is I consider this a one-stop shop for anything EV charging, information or education related. This includes hardware, software, load management or power management, even ADA design and best approaches for layout when it comes to designing with EV chargers. These are things that are important and can really make a difference in a project. And so, we really want to be a resource to you, and then also residents who may have questions about, how does this look on our property? And also HOA members, HOA boards, as others have mentioned, EV charging isn't a one-size-fits-all, and there's various needs. So we want to make sure that we're addressing those as they come up. And then lastly, assistance with the available rebates. So SVCE has their own in-house multifamily EV incentives, but there's also, a lot of regional incentive opportunities and much more to come. So when you enroll in FutureFit Assist, we make sure that you have access to those opportunities, especially if you're eligible and a good candidate. We will help you apply and try to maximize as much funding for your projects as possible. So here is a quick snapshot of the program offerings. So end-to-end support that looks like start to finish. You are maybe thinking about it, not sure, to we just finished installing these chargers. Can you help us get these rebates procured finally? And my team is here to assist that entire time. We provide a charging evaluation report, and this is a detailed and very personalized report specialized to your property in order to lay out a couple different charging options. And this includes cost estimates, and just based on today's average market cost for materials, hardware, equipment, and also the infrastructure requirements. So do you need a transformer upgrade? Do you need a panel upgrade? We want to make sure you have a full picture before moving into any type of project. And the site design layout is included in this report. So as I mentioned, ADA is something a lot of people are not prepared for. And we have, through many, the ADA is a tricky one, and especially with EV charging. So the expertise here is super helpful, and it's just really beneficial to have planned for, because it could really impact a project. And then moving from there, so when you have decided to move forward with a project, we can definitely assist with requests for proposals, requests for bids. We have a trade ally list that we can make available to our participants. And those are EV experienced installers and vendors who have partnered with the SVCE program to respond to RFPs. And then incentive application support. So making sure that you are applying for the rebates for what is available to you. And then finally, installation contractor support. So from permitting to just, things come up, escalations happen during the project process, and then final inspections, making sure that everyone is supported to make sure you get a successful project done. And then this is a snapshot of what the technical assistance program actually looks like. To give you an idea, it starts with contact, working with me to understand what your goals are, and then enrollment through signing our participation agreement. We will conduct a site visit with my engineer who comes and looks at your electrical infrastructure in the parking areas. And then we do a capacity estimate and the design layout, which is included in our charging evaluation report. And then from there, contractor bidding, permits, installation, rebate procurement, and then finally, operational charging infrastructure. And this next slide will just briefly go over the SVTEC incentives. And there is a lot of information on this slide. So I do encourage anyone to go to the website, and I can link that in the chat so that you can kind of look over these. But this is a snapshot of what's available to multifamilies right now for existing and new construction. So level 1 and 2 outlets are incentivized, level 2 chargers, panel upgrades, pre-wiring. These are things that we have come to experience with the kind of aging infrastructure in the Bay Area. It does help to incentivize a panel upgrade and making sure that you're preparing for the future, not just by installing a couple of chargers now, but really thinking down the line when there is a little bit more demand on your site. So these are what are available to you. And if you have questions, you can talk to me later. My contact information will be made available, so we can, if you have any questions on this, you can reach out. And then I'll kind of skim over this next slide because we've really touched on it, and I don't want to harp too much on this, but as everyone has kind of pointed to, there is a need for EV charging, especially at multifamilies. And it's a mutualistic relationship between EV demand and the need for EV charging. So the more chargers are made available, the more likely people are to get EVs. And if you are a multifamily owner, there's obvious benefits with the property. Let me skip to the next slide. With attracting and retaining residents, increasing your property value, being able to generate some charging revenue, being able to put that back into your own property, and then reaching sustainability goals. And this second to last bullet point, I include this: provide an expected amenity. I do consider EV charging to be similar to Wi-Fi in the sense that we expect Wi-Fi pretty much everywhere we go now, and that is very much where EV charging is heading. Grocery stores, malls, and then workplaces, and this does include multifamilies. So really getting ahead of that curve and thinking about what people are going to want in the future. And then also, just lastly, to contribute to broader environmental and sustainability goals. So thank you again for letting me, for listening to me talk about this. I have included a link here that I will put in the chat. If you are interested in enrolling and exploring options, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you.
Wow, we are so far ahead of schedule that I'm almost a little scared. But thank you so much for that, Claudia. That was very helpful to get that overview and think about how it fits together with other things. And I wanted to, I'm gonna ask the first question as we move into our Q&A, but stacking. And I know that that's something that often comes up as a question when there is a CCA and others involved. Claudia, is that something that you and your team work with the landlords on so that they can, understand if they choose certain programs that they might not be able to stack, others they might be able to realize additional incentives? Like, how does that sort of fit into your work?
Yeah, so like you said, these different incentive programs have various requirements. So first we'll want to make sure that they are stackable or combinable. But a lot of the time, if they are, we will make sure we'll look at the details of it. So a lot of these state provided incentive programs require prevailing wage or union labor wage. So and that's something that's not required by Silicon Valley Clean Energy's incentives. So if that's the case and you can stack them, we will make sure that the quotes you receive are matching what you are actually going to experience, and making sure that you are, applying for the rebates and keeping up to when they have required deadlines for documentation, and just making sure everything is really laid out for you.
Great, thank you. And Zoe, I'm sorry, I jumped right in there. I didn't even give you a chance to wrap up before I asked the first question, but
that's okay. You were excited, and I was thinking, wow, we have a group of professionals on here. Whenever conversations get done, clear all that information on time, it's like that is a sign of professionals. I have a question. I know that folks take a little bit of time to warm up their questions, so I'll ask one more, and then we'll go to the audience. And no pressure if you guys are kind of out walking around, but if anybody wants to come on and show their camera, will help us feel like we're having a conversation. But either way, just unmute when you have a question. But I have one I wanted to ask, and thanks everybody for all the resources. I feel like anybody who wants to apply for something has all the resources they need to take the first step in the chat. So in addition to having our private sector folks on, and we work with property managers, another big audience for SVCE, we have a number of folks on the call here from cities. So I would love to hear, I'm going to do just a round robin in the order that folks spoke. If there's one thing that you think local governments could do to help ease the friction, make it easier to install EV charging at multifamily properties, and please be as specific as possible, I'd love to hear that. And so we will start first with Devin. Just going to go quickly in order.
My 2 cents would be really focusing on infrastructure, both on the grid side as well as charging side. That's my 2 cents.
Fantastic. And next I'll go to Mike and Miguel.
So when you talk about local government, the only thing they really oversee is permitting. So I would have to say permitting, that they streamline it, and they understand that this is going to be a lot of these coming through, and that they have a process for them. So that would be my one thing for local governments to work on.
Well, I think the other thing that can be worked on is local governments pulling together, and let's meet with the CPUC. I've been working with GoBiz, and we are trying to meet with CPUC to change some of the IOU's outlook that they have to have commercial equipment installed for dedicated meters dedicated to EV charging. That's not true. And if we could change that, that would speed up the installation and complete the process of installing.
Also reduces the cost. The residential style gear is less expensive than the commercial style gear, and it's more available for the speed up. You're correct.
Fantastic. And is there an active proceeding happening now with the CPUC on this issue? Like an active opportunity to participate?
There is an opportunity to participate. We just have to push it. So I've already got contacts with GoBiz to do just that. But obviously, the more input that we can get from SVCE and other agencies like that, the faster that the CPUC will consider it and make that. It's not even a change. It's just needs to make that direction to the utilities.
Fantastic. Yeah, Miguel, if you could make sure to follow up with us so we can share that out in the notes, but we can also share it with all of our member agencies as well as our advocacy folks.
Thank you.
And Mike, on point of we've got a state that's got great streamlined rules. I think most of our cities are either streamlined or on their way, but then my understanding is there's a difference between having stuff on the books and having it implemented. So the folks on this call, assuming, I think that's one thing, is making sure to do that extra step and make sure that the streamlining is actually being implemented effectively. And SVCE here is SVCE. We have permit modernization support, about $3 million in grants. So if you're having a hard time implementing the law, we're here to help support that with grants and resources. All right, Heather, one specific thing cities could do to make installation multifamily easier.
Yeah, I have to agree with the permitting comment. I think increasing the speed at which permits are approved is one. So that'd probably be my number one, but also improving the transparency of the process and helping projects really understand the reality of the next steps. So I think sometimes it's very unclear at the beginning how much complexity is going to be involved. So having a bit more transparency about the process at the beginning of the project.
Great, fantastic transparency. And another area that if building official staff is overwhelmed, SVCE can help with creating documents to increase transparency. Just another plug. Okay, let me just make sure I got the right list. Yes, Jeff. Is Jeff still on the call? We'd love to hear from you. I don't know if he was able to stay on. Okay, nope. I think Jeff had to jump off to help his tenants. I know he had another engagement. So Claudia, I'll go to you. One thing that city governments could do.
Yeah, I would encourage the utility engineering departments to really take into consideration new and emerging technologies. There are so many options out there that are, from power management and different types of charging, kind of how that looks, that there is a learning curve for these being like more widely accepted and permissible with the cities. But I do think that they could, at least from my experience, with working with different city departments and being like, kind of going over these newer technologies and newer options. So making sure that they are kind of staying on top of that rather than having property owners and contractors introducing that to them. I think that would help with this whole issue of streamlining these permitting processes too. But I also echo what everyone else has said too.
And Crystal, I see Crystal's question about reduced permitting fees. And I will say, one thing that we've heard that, and I'm curious what folks think, is that the fees often don't seem to be as such a significant portion of the overarching cost. But one thing that's tricky is for building officials is the more that we reduce permitting fees, the less staff we have at building departments, and then the slower things get. So there's kind of a race to the bottom, unless we're really seeing permitting fees that are truly extraneous. I think we would just want to be mindful. That's my perspective. Anybody else, feel free to jump in with a different one. All right, I'm gonna open it up, but I did want to just clarify one thing that Claudia mentioned, and Hannah can speak to this. Our SVCE program, we actually do require prevailing wage. Our understanding is that actually it's a requirement from the way that our funds are run, but also we think it's the best way to get good jobs going. No, but Claudia, that was a change in our program after we better understood things, just folks know. However, we also offer assistance for folks for property managers that maybe, or contractors rather, that haven't quite filled out the form to be eligible for a prevailing wage, or to be documented for it, I guess, is maybe the words, that we actually can help with that process. So I wanted to make that note.
Yeah, and that is because it is public funds, and that is the requirement in the state of California. So similarly, in my day job, I work with the economic development directors who are working to get parklets and public dining on sidewalks, etc. And they have run into the same issue that prevailing wage is required if it's a grant or gift of public funds. So that is what it is. Ooh,
there it is. They heard us say gift of public funds, and they alerted us. Mine stopped already. Okay, other questions? We've taken up lots of times your facilitators with all of our questions, so I want to just open up the floor. Please just feel free to unmute and jump on in. Small enough group. All right, I'm not seeing. Yeah, go ahead, Heather.
I had a question.
Yeah.
For any property owners or managers on the phone, I would love to hear how best a company like ours, when we get requests from tenants in buildings, which we often do, who live in your buildings perhaps, and they want EV charging, what is the best way to help them? Because I think sometimes we are, they're not the decision maker, right? So we are often kind of educating them about different services and then sending them back to kind of make the case to their building owner or manager. But I'm just curious, for managers on the phone, how can a company like EVmatch be most helpful to you in that scenario? And I don't know if we have many building owners at this point.
Heather, I can take that one, or try to take that one. This is Santiago with Sarah's Regis. I am not with our property management division. I'm a development manager, so a little bit more on design and construction. But I think what I've heard is when there's a complaint from our tenants, it's very simple. It's because there's not enough stalls for them. So like they'll show up at night after work and they just can't find anywhere to park, and now they're stuck, maybe going down again at night, or just kind of having to wait for something to open up, and then they're thinking of the next day and how are they going to get to work. So it's really more of a supply concern on their end. So I think one thing that just kind of going off the cuff here, how I see the value of your company or other folks in this call is just helping us expand in a manner that works within our electrical capabilities. So how do we expand? How do we navigate all the different agencies and the permitting and the paperwork and all that? And so I think that would be my answer. How do we expand in a way that makes sense and in a way that that pays off as well? So I don't know if that answers your.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks.
Yep.
I just got to throw in, Santiago, you just actually told one of the stories that I usually present with, which is imagine driving home and all the chargers are full.
Yep.
Anyway, it's it's music to my ears that my story is actually accurate, and you just reflected it from real life.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's, when our residents are concerned, or when they have a complaint rather, is because we just don't have enough for them. So.
Gotcha.
And Miles, I see that you've unmuted. I didn't see if you wanted to ask a question or chime in on this comment.
I will ask a separate question. I'd love to ask, both GoPowerEV and EVmatch, their experience around Jeff talked about 70% of apartment buildings are old. And I don't know if that's a California statistic, but certainly feels like it might be a statistic across the country. But how often are you all working with older buildings and not retrofitting the power initially? In other words, thinking over the course of time, you might need to replace the power infrastructure, but are you able to work with the existing power and then grow from there? What's a typical scenario in an old building? Are you usually replacing power, or?
Yeah, I could start there.
Yeah.
So we are always looking for an opportunity to get charging in the ground as soon as possible today, and then help the property owner think about kind of a longer term strategy. And so typically we can find some power available in the house panel. And, that may look like 4 chargers or 10 chargers with power sharing, that in our solution would be shared among residents on a reservation system. So we find that that's a really helpful way to get started. That is not going to be the end all be all solution for 10 years. And then, the property manager owner can start thinking about upgrading their service panel and transform. But we are successful at helping retrofit properties or get chargers deployed without a major electrical upgrade, at least to start with. And I do think power sharing is essential. So we have those capabilities with both of our hardware providers, NLXway and JuiceBox. And I echo what Claudia said. I think helping city building officials understand those systems so they can approve those permits more quickly is essential. And so just kind of an improvement in education on power sharing and demand management, because those are the ways in which we can start to deploy chargers at older buildings today.
I'm going to echo everything Heather just said because it's spot on, and we do a similar thing. What we've been, I'm going to say, forced to do because of the time delays in most of the utilities is we bifurcate our project into a phase 1 and a phase 2, and we'll go in and we'll find, just the same way Heather said, is, how many spots can we add based on a study of your existing power available, and we will do that as a stepping stone on the way to a fuller installation. So, we're going to look for, okay, let's devise a plan that's going to meet your total building needs. But I absolutely want charging starting as soon as possible, because I want you to be able to advertise that, right? That you have EV charging. And then we all know that, in a given building, if you've got 1 or 2 EV drivers today, the odds of you picking up 1 or 2 more in a small complex in the next year is reasonable. So if we had 4 spots that were up and running for the next 12 months, then you're probably okay covered while we're waiting for everything else to go through. Does that make sense?
That's great. I'm just pleased to hear that you both are saying you're able to start right away and then phase it. So that's
and realize right away is still a few months.
Yes.
It's not.
Start with what you have, I think, is a better way to put it. You're able to start with what you have. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, when you design that system, you also do things like, if we know we're going to grow it, I'm probably not going to try to jam more breakers into your existing house panel. I'm probably going to set an EV charging panel and put 1 breaker in your house panel. And then when that transitions to its own power source or its own own meter, then we just disconnect that entire panel and attach it to the new stuff. So there's intelligent ways to do it, right? You don't want to be tearing out too much as you make that change between early installation and later installation, if you can avoid it. But yeah, talk to us. Happy to help you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to add to that, the technical assistance, we go into these multifamilies and we see basically recalled panels. They're not federally recalled, but they're just highly recommended to be replaced. And it's so frequent that we see these. So a lot of the reports that we put out to our customers look at an option where you're staying within capacity, assuming that there is capacity, or here's what it would cost to, do a retrofit for the main switchboard. And that's when the main panel incentive then kicks in. So you can actually see how this might look doing it in phases, as Mike and Heather suggested, or maybe taking advantage of the incentives now and doing a project all at once in a couple of months, or, and then also there are other options for maybe going from the residential units themselves, their meters, to provide EV charging. So these are all different options and scenarios to consider and look at.
There's some trade-offs when you start tapping into the unit meters. You basically end up with permanently assigned parking. So
yeah,
just know your trade-offs. But yeah, it's absolutely a way to go.
Yeah.
Marlon, I see you have unmuted too. Did you have something to add to this part, or another question?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm with Ecology Action, and one of the things that, with our focus on affordable, there's all this tremendous demand we see in the numbers of EVs that are being purchased. In affordable, it's not so much the case, and we find that a lot of the resistance to deploying charging at scale in the affordable market segment is undemonstrated demand from the tenants. And one of the things that we piloted with SVCE, and I think 2021 and 22 under the on-ramp program, was to pair vehicle demand generation support with the installation of the of the chargers so that we could build both the demand and the charging, so that any underutilization of the chargers would be short-lived, hopefully. So that's one thing that I think really we should, as an industry, try to build towards, maybe not so much in the luxury and the premium market segments, because I think the demand's already there. But I really think that's an important component. So that's a statement. And I guess one of the questions that I have for any of the property managers and folks in the development community are, in order to get the approval from your corporate decision makers, how important is the demonstration of demand from your customers today? We all know that it's coming, but are you finding in the times that you've tried to get charging, approval for charging through these programs that are offered through like the vendors that are here today, are you finding resistance if you're not unable to show that your tenants are wanting it?
Great question.
Yeah, I would say so. Yes. I mean, you gotta have the data to back up what sometimes is a large investment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, one of the strategies we've been really thinking of using is trying to really, agitate the base, get the folks who want the cars to be vocal with their owners. Because sometimes people, well, of course, it's harder in lower income because it's hard to afford anything but pre-owned cars, and those programs are sort of coming along now, the pre-owned car incentive programs. But I think we'd like to try to experiment more with that as a mechanism. We're getting, with the 15 owner groups that we're working directly with, we're getting some good uptake, but the issue is that they don't want to go very fast. They want to do one property and wait, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year, whatever, to begin even thinking about other properties just to see how it goes. And that's not so scalable for us, just for the industry. Really needs to drive it out quicker than that.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's kind of the approach we're seeing too. Even within single, individual properties, we tend to take it slow. So.
Mm-hmm.
So, things that people need to be considering is, what holds the price of an EV high? The only thing that really holds it high is the cost of a battery, and the amount of dollars and companies working on battery technology and cost of batteries is astronomical. And if you read any of the news out there on car manufacturers, BYD is about to surpass Tesla in number of EVs produced in a year. And if you don't know who BYD is the manufacturer in China that does EVs, and they're 3,000 cars short of surpassing Tesla in volume. And they're one of the, anyway, and they'll start coming over soon. And so the cost of the entry level cost of an EV will drop like a rock. The incentives in California for EV purchases, they're about to shift that money and up it to, I think it's like $12,500 for income qualified. So take $12,500 off your EV purchase in California. It's pretty huge. So there's a lot of stuff stacking up. And then the other thing to consider is, when you install receptacles, it's not just a four-wheeled vehicle, right? You can also have a scooter, a bicycle. And I think that in your affordable housing, a lot of your transportation mode is going to be two-wheel electric. So, when you're looking at building out, when I'm up in Seattle and I'm in properties and they have bike lockers there, I have a conversation with that building owner and say, look, e-bikes are coming, whether you want them or not, scooters, segways, whatever you want to call them, right? Do you really want your residents taking their wet bike, because it's Seattle, they're always wet, down the carpeted hallway, into the carpeted elevator, down the carpeted hallway, and into their unit to charge it? Or should we add some charging in your bike lockers that you already have in the garage area? So, when you look about charging in affordable housing, don't get hung up on the fact that they have to be four-wheeled cars, because the first adoption in a lot of those is going to be a less expensive scooter, bicycle, something else. And then incentives that we have for, you know, especially lower income stuff in California, they're fantastic, and especially the used ones. So you're right, point people to those resources. I can tell you one more thing. We did some of our properties were built under a CalNext grant, which requires a lot of surveying. And so you should definitely be doing surveys, and especially, you know, Santiago and your people that live in the building. We send, you know, we have surveys that are already ready to go to tenants when people work with us. We provide the link to the building owner and they send the link out, and we don't request any personal information. And then find out what are the tenants thinking. And I can tell you, one of the surveys we got back under the CalNext program told us, you know, the results from the survey were, hey, now that there's charging in the building, we're absolutely more interested in looking at getting an EV. So, you know, we build it and they will come. It is true in multifamily for EVs. You know, people don't want a car that they can't charge, you know, when they're at home, right? Because charging takes some time.
No, that's a great point. Makes total sense. Maybe I don't want a car because there's nowhere to charge, and that's the only thing holding me back. So
yep, exactly. So you know, like Miles was asking about, how do I get started and put some charging in, as Heather said, and I said, is like, yeah, you want to get some charging there, and you need a plan to fill it out and have a full solution.
Yep, makes sense.
Heather,
I wanted to add one more thing.
Yep.
Yeah, Malin, I was thinking about what your question was, and I think we face this challenge a lot where, to my earlier question, like, we hear from tenants that they have demand, but we're trying to help communicate that to their building owners to build the case to the decision maker that actually there is real demand here. One thing I hear from owners and developers is that they really need demonstrated data to show that they're losing tenants without EV charging, or they cannot properly attract tenants. Like, it really is an essential component. You know, in the same way, folks might think about, you know, washer dryer. And I'm not quite sure we're there yet, but we're getting closer. But I think some of the challenge is also just collecting that data and compiling it and having it accessible to demonstrate that demand is there and increasing. And then the other thing I hear is that there's not enough data to demonstrate that adding chargers adds value to the property, actually increases the building value in the same way, you know, solar panels were demonstrated. That's, I think, a piece of industry or market analysis that is hard to find. If folks on this call have that, I think it could be helpful for property owners and developers.
I can say that when we've been in some condo complexes where owners have installed EV charging on their own at what is great expense when you try to just do one-offs, they absolutely believe the resale value of their units go up. So there's that one data point that you know, we can point to.
And maybe what's been one thing demonstrated in this call is that we are building momentum. So maybe we do have enough examples now that research could be done to sort of actually say, okay, like across the state, or is there a premium for EV charging? So really fantastic conversation. I started off talking about how 4 years ago we were hoping to have this kind of conversation and we weren't quite there yet. And now, you know, what I'm feeling feels really clear to me is that we are now jumping up that exponential curve in terms of adoption and in terms of charging. And so for the city folks and for the property owners on the call, I would also say this funny chicken and egg scenario where it's like, do we build the charging after people are really demanding it before? But what I would just say is that we're at this really sweet spot in terms of public investment, because what happens, and we're seeing this on the building electrification side, as soon as you jump up in demand for these investments, the subsidies go down because the pie just has to serve more people. And so, you know, what an amazing thing right now. People are in this position where you can reach out to Claudia and she can provide a free roadmap, technical assistance to exactly create a plan. If you're not ready to install chargers yet, you can at least get that plan, you know, for free. Obviously, we have incentives that you can work with EVmatch, GoPowerEV, Ecology Action, any other provider of your choice today once you have that plan in place. And then, as we started out with Ecology Action, for some of the older buildings, the affordable housing, or other places where it's just older and it makes more sense to go a direct install program, there's an opportunity now to get no cost installation or just a small copay of installation costs. So it's a really ripe time where I think there's a lot of solutions for all different property types. So I encourage you to leverage them, to let other property owners know about them, cities to help us communicate this out to community members. And I have no doubt the next conversation that we have will have even more examples, more case studies to share. And we just look forward to partnering with y'all. We'll make sure these resources and the slides all come out in email. If you don't have a chance to click over here on the side for any resources, you'll get it in your email box. So thank you so much for your time today. And we'll look forward to speaking with you all soon. Don't hesitate to reach out if we can connect you with anyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for the great conversation.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Appreciate the